Welcome to the 406th episode of CppCast, the first podcast for C++ developers by C++ developers. I am your host, Jason Turner. For those of you just joining us, this is on a every fourth week cycle here that this is a C++ weekly / CppCast episode. We're releasing CppCast once a month right now. You can choose to watch on YouTube or your favorite podcast service. I am joined by my new co-host, Mathieu Roper. How are you doing, Mathieu?
Great. How are you?
I think I'm doing all right. This is exciting and new and different and interesting.
Yeah. I think it's new for both of us. I guess the difference is you maybe are more awake than me because I don't know what time is it in Colorado right now.
It is exactly noon.
Oh, okay. Then you peak awake unless you had lunch just an hour ago and now you're asleep. But hopefully you didn't go to lunch just before that.
I did have
see the sunset behind me. I'm sorry.
I see that. You don't have much. That your son's going to be staying up much later, very soon here.
Yeah, I was looking that recently. We just beat England on the sunrise. I think we're still matched on the sunset, but it's gonna go. It's all uphill or downhill from here, depending how you want to look at it.
Where are you living right now?
Stockholm. I'm still in Stockholm.
Stockholm. Yeah. Okay. You'll have plenty of daylight hours soon. We all will.
Yes.
But that's a topic for another conversation. All right. This week, we are joined by Keith Stockdale. Keith is a Northern Irish senior software engineer who has been working on the engine and rendering teams at Rare since 2017, but initially got his start there as a rendering intern in 2015. He primarily works on engine and rendering level systems involving general-purpose GPU systems, such as GPU particle systems. Keith is enthusiastic about promoting and writing good quality code, whether it is running on the CPU or on the GPU. Keith is currently working on a shader test framework, which aims to promote writing unit tests for shader code, just like you would with regular CPU code. While working on this project, Keith contributed the test case persistent fixture to Catch 2. Keith has also contributed to every major release of Unreal Engine from 5.2 to 5.7. Welcome, Keith.
Thank you very much. Good to be here.
That is a very specific what is that test case persistent fixture?
So the way the Catch 2 works is if you've got a test case, you can have what are known as sections. And as soon as you have sections in your test case, it'll run that test case for as many leaf sections as there are in that test case. And every time it does that, it tears down the entire test fixture behind the scenes and recreates it again.
Okay.
That's a real problem if you're wanting to do some really heavy setup codes, like creating a DirectX 12 context or maybe connecting to a database, loading a big file, something like that. So what this does is it means you can keep some very heavy initialization code persistent throughout the entire test case. So it'll speed up your tests in some cases if that's the sort of test you're running, which I was.
Is there risk of that of state persisting and messing up your further tests?
That's up to you on whether you get your destructor correct or not, right? So if your fixture class as long as it's doing the right destruction in that, it should be fine. One of the interesting iteration points was I initially had it so that it was mutable by default, but through conversation on the PR, we actually decided on making it const by default, so that if you're mutating that initialization state as you go through the tests, you have to make a conscious effort to do that. You have to opt into that, so it's got the right defaults as well, which is quite nice.
Yeah, I was gonna say, then it's kind of like C++ when you have like all the options are there, but like 90% of them are basically gonna blow you on foot. But you just said we have the right defaults. That clearly is not C++.
You just look at lambdas, right? Lambda's got everything right.
Yeah.
Pretty much. Context
True.
by
That is
default,
actually
const by
very true.
default. Yeah.
Don't they have section in the, because you mentioned it's called Catch something, right? And it got me thinking about Catch 2 kind of immediately. And I think you have sections in Catch 2.
That's what he's saying, yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, so it's the same idea.
No, it's the same thing. It is an add-on to Catch 2 that he submitted.
Oh, it's an add-on. Okay, my bad.
It's my big open source contribution to the world.
As an aside, I assume Rare had no problem with you making this contribution.
No, I talked about it and everybody was like, that's cool. Yeah.
Oh, it's very nice to hear.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk about a few news items. And again, since CppCast is on a monthly rhythm right now, these aren't up to the minute news items, but they're just things that you may have missed. The first being that C++26 was actually finalized, and we have the trip report from Herb Sutter here. So I don't know if either one of you have any comments, anything that stuck out to you in this.
Oh, I have so many thoughts about C++26, but maybe Keith would.
Well, yeah, it's reflection, right? It's one of the headlines on it. But yeah, I'm very excited for reflection. There's a lot of things in 26 I'm really excited for. One of the thing that I was begging for, well, I was wishing I had literally yesterday was template 4. I'm really looking forward to that. I had one of those cases where you have two variadic template packs, and you're just trying to go iterate through them, and it's just fun with recursion. But if I had template 4, it would have been a much nicer experience. And then the other thing is static assert. You have formatable static assert stuff, which is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about you, Mathieu? You want to poke out anything? You can go for it.
Yeah. What did I do? I did executions. I'm always the threading and parallelism guy when I can. So I, every couple of years, I'm like, oh, maybe this will finally replace my local copy of TBB, thread building blocks. And so far, I haven't been very convinced. I wrote about it a couple months ago, I think. I think it's looks interesting for async. It doesn't look as good for parallel. It's basically been my vibe. I think they had a parallel, like equivalent to parallel for like bulk, I think it was called, and they removed it at the last minute because it looked like it was not ready yet. So yet another, not this time, parallel for replacement. I'm going back to TBB again.
I have spent almost no time with execution. I have friends who have been involved in it, and then I try to look at it, and I'm like, this is big. Like, I feel like
It's huge.
reflection is small compared to this.
I think the main difference is that execution is actually mostly library feature. I don't think there's anything in the actual language itself, while reflection is actually stuff in your compiler. Plus like meta, and I think there's like another header around that. But execution is basically a library.
Right.
Yeah. Although Herb did mention that he feels it's one of those things that it doesn't have all the nice wrappers around it. So like people are using it, you can use it, but it might take a lot of learning to actually learn how to actually make use of it in an effective way.
It's like coroutines. We have exactly one helper for coroutines still in the standard.
Yeah, it's only generators, right?
Yes.
Just generator, yeah. Although theoretically execution works with coroutines, I think.
Yeah, and I think that was the big reason, is that when you start working with coroutines, turns out making a generator is pretty easy, with or without code, but even better with C++23 generators. But the minute you have to implement your own awaited suspend, it brings a lot of questions that you have to answer. Like, what does that mean, suspend? Where are you suspending to? What's your resume condition? Who's going to wake you up? Are you going to wake up on the same thread or on another thread? Do you have a scheduler? Do you have a thread pool? And I think that's why you can't really have a standard solution outside of having an entire framework like execution in the standard. Because there is just, like, what do you do? Like, what does it mean for your program to suspend? What does it mean for your program to resume?
Yeah.
And I think that's why it's a big can of worm.
This makes me curious, Keith. Like, do you, with all of the game development GPU specific stuff that you'd use, does this world even exist to you, right? Like parallel algorithms, for example. Like,
yes.
Do you use that?
Yes. We have this lovely little function in Unreal Engine called parallel 4, which does exactly what you think it does.
Handy.
Yes. So Yeah, we use our own breed of things, right? We're not. I don't think we'll be touch and stood execution. Full stop.
I thought you were going to say until C++ 39 or something
No,
like that, but
it's a really easy thing for us to like start using language features, but it's another thing if it's a library feature, because it's got like they've got their own way of doing things in terms of the library and all of that. So yeah, language stuff. So I can see us using reflection. That'd be great.
yeah.
But I did note in Herb's trip report, he says that he suspects that C++ 26 adoption will be fast. He specifically doesn't mention MSVC in his reasoning for that. I don't think MSVC has any implementation of C++ 26 yet.
Do they? Oh, because they had
No.
code out for a while. It's always seemed to be like a cycle, right? Like between Clang GCC and MSVC, which one is ahead and which one is lagging behind.
Yeah,
I
like
thought
they were
MSVC
super.
was good these days.
Yeah, they were
but-
super ahead in 20. Like I was always very proud. Like, oh, we're using MSVC all the time, and we've got all these cool things. And like, I think we had deducing this really quick as well. And then it all just sort of slowed down.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Like for execution, I think I just use the library anyway. I haven't tried reflection at all yet.
Neither have I.
For 23, I think I have most of it already. Question mark.
That's
always the least of feature.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's always the list of feature and the table that you have to. I'm not going to say print because it changes every release, but like table of compilers, which what are you allowed to do and what are you not allowed to do.
Yeah, as an aside, cppstat.dev, if you all haven't seen that.
I just noticed that, yes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, that one's doing a pretty good job of that. Well, it's interesting. I mean, well, I can derail from the interview, I guess, because I'm the host if I want to, but I'm reminded of Mike Acton's keynote, right? From so long ago.
From 14.
Basically, I mean, my takeaway from the keynote was game developers can't use lambdas because they're too expensive, basically, which is just like not correct, right? And then an interesting like the next generation there is one reason, like, and Matt Godbold has stated this many times, that Compiler Explorer exists is because he was like doing high frequency trading, and the team didn't trust ranged for loops because those were probably more expensive. So he made Compiler Explorer to basically to see whether or not it was. And so anyhow, I find it interesting that you say, oh yeah, new language features. Yeah, no problem adopting those. Well, though 15 years ago, like it was a big problem, right?
Yep. Well, I'm speaking for us specifically. I talked to other studios, and some other studios, like, they still have these bans on fairly basic C++ 11 and 17 features. So I'm speaking purely in my experience here. We at Rare, we don't have an issue with new features.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, it does seem to vary a lot from studio to studio how conservative they want to be with C++. I do admit that I think, from my own experience, there is a breed of C++ programmer and game developer that don't want to do C++. They just want to do C with a few extra features.
No, they want to do assembly.
It's always like, oh, but it's more simple if I only set a stop to like C89 set.
Yeah. Like a good example of this is I was submitting a change to Unreal Engine, and they made me get rid of the if init statement. I was using if init in C++ 17, and they said this isn't very common and could be seen as something else or something like that there. And I was like, okay, you pollute that outer scope if you want to. That's fine. I'll not argue with you. I just wanted my change in. I didn't like if that's your style, that's fine. But that's an example of like they had C++ 17, but they weren't using some nice features from it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of if init, but when students push back on if init, I'm like, like I appreciate that this one, like you have to, in a way, you have to be looking for it, right? Like it's easy to skip that middle semicolon or format it correctly, and in a way that you can see that it's a condition and then a break and then the init and then the condition. Yeah. Well, we have a visitor on camera.
Yes. I think he He's very curious. Do you have thoughts on C++, Max?
Our viewers will love to see a cat. I guess I should move on with the news items, and we're kind of already touching on the meat of the interview anyhow. But the next news item that I had up here, which will be still appropriate when this episode goes live, is that Meeting C++ 2026 has been announced, and the call for papers is open until June 4th. And this episode will air in a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, something like that. So around the end of April, this will be airing. So yeah, I think I am actually going to submit talks to Meeting C++ this year, which I have not done since 2017 personally, because it just doesn't tend to work with my schedule. But are you two planning to go? Thinking about it?
I did, and then I saw the dates for it, and there's a very good chance I'll be very busy at that point. So, no, I think is the answer for me.
A very good chance I'll be busy. That sounds ominous. What about you, Matthew?
I think it's. I'm gonna have a look. I've been on and off of Meeting C++ from time to time. I think the big thing I'd like to do is if I can combo it with a second conference, so I don't have to do the whole round trip through Europe. So a couple years ago, I managed to combine it with Code Dive, which was really nice because you get a nice train ride then from Berlin to Wrocław, which is a nice change. So I will look at the dates and I might send something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and part of the appeal for me is the dates at the moment because, well, my wife and I love going to Christmas markets in Germany, and it's the weekend that the Christmas markets in Berlin open. So, got to do what you got to do.
I guess what date is this? I'm not even doing that.
The 26th to the 28th of November. Yeah, I should have stated that.
Oh, it's actually quite late November. Okay, yeah, that's. I'll keep that in mind and see if maybe I will be there. Who knows?
I was talking to Jens. He's like, that'll be over Thanksgiving, U.S. Thanksgiving, and I'm like, okay.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's a thing we think about in Europe.
No, I was kind of surprised he pointed it out. Yeah. I've been recently surprised at how many countries have a holiday called Thanksgiving that is approximately the same as the one in the U.S. I knew forever that Canada did, but there's apparently a few other countries as well.
Oh, really?
I can't remember them off the top of my head right now. So, anyhow. The next item I have up is the Dear ImGui Explorer. And I don't know, I just thought it was interesting. Did either one of you play with this thing?
I did, and I love these types of things. Like it's just like shader toy is a big thing for us, or Compiler Explorer, just being able to share stuff and just make stuff just really easily like that. It's always cool.
Yeah. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Dear, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
If you're not familiar with Dear ImGui, it is an immediate mode GUI, whatever. It's a handy GUI for C and C++ users, right? And apparently there's Python bindings as well. And this is a tool online to let you explore all the different widgets and features that it has.
Yeah, and I really like that part because I use ImGui from time to time on. I think it is. I don't know if you will agree with me on that one, Keith, but it kind of is the default. I need to make a GUI real quick in games and game-related stuff. If you
there's no equal.
Yeah, exactly.
there's no equal. You're always reaching for it.
Yeah,
is this still the case? Because there used to be you always had to use a specific branch. You always had to use the docking branch, because that would let you to actually dock windows to each other, and you could do cool stuff with it. But it was always in this other branch. It was never it never got merged, and you always had to look out specifically for that docking branch to get all the nice cool stuff. I'm wondering now if it's been merged finally.
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
No, I haven't played with that either, but I think it is interesting because the one thing I was mentioning that I wanted to mention that I liked about the website is the fact that you can actually explore the possible layout. Because my one issue with it when I try to use it is that I was like, oh, what kind of UI can I make with this? And having some examples and being able to very quickly well, you can try it out, but just seeing all the stuff that's possible to me was already pretty big. If it was only a reference and I could not edit it, I would already have loved it. So now it's just the extra icing on the cake. I didn't know you could do doc. Kind of a thing I also want to have to try out now.
Can you live edit the code in the demo? No, wait.
I'm not sure you can live edit it. I assume you could, but maybe not.
Either way, if you click on something, it will take you to the line of code that made
Yeah.
that thing possible. So you can at least see the example or whatever of how it was made. You all have no idea how many times I've been tempted to write a C++ wrapper around Dear ImGui so that it automatically, like, in the few cases where you want it to, like, have a closing block or whatever, right? So it just... But anyhow, I have not done that. It's probably worth pointing out, and I can't... maybe I'll try to find a link to put in the show notes, that there is a well-maintained SFML to Dear ImGui C++ binding like library. One of my friends maintains it, who goes to my meetup here, and it is now easily ingestible with like CPM or like fetch contentable, if you know. So it now can be just like a single line to get SFML and Dear ImGui and whatever in your C++ project if you're just hacking something together real quick. So something to play with. All right.
Are you guys not using VC package? I don't know. Maybe I'm living in a different world, but now every time I need to try something out, I just do VC package, install it, I'm done.
Well, what about you, Keith? I have opinions.
Anytime I go to, so I only do stuff that uses package managers in my hobby stuff. But in my experience, whenever I'm reaching for certain libraries, I find that Conan has one, VC package has another, and they're not in both. And I hate having everything all in one. So if you look at any of my hobby projects, you'll just find a huge amount of fetch content in CMake. Yeah. So I basically just like do all of the package management through CMake, but not through an actual package manager.
Well, I use CPM, which all it does is use fetch content in the back end, so it saves you an extra step there.
Yeah.
I was frustrated with via what's it called?
VC package.
The VC package. The first time I tried it, and I haven't tried it in many years now, because I go to install it and it insists on installing its entire own like toolchain of GCC and Clang and everything. And I'm like, no. I want you to use the one that I already have. So I just basically gave up on VC package, never went back to it after that.
The last time I tried, I don't think that was the case.
I have no idea.
I know that
I don't remember being annoyed by that. I'll put it that way.
It may have a few quirks, if I recall. It does install a bunch of stuff for you. Like I think it does install like its own Ciguino MSys. It might install its own CMake if you don't have the right version. But I only use it on MSVC, so I don't know if you try to use it with Linux or Mac. If it tries something weird with your toolchain.
Yeah. Well, all right. We'll move on.
Yeah.
In a way, we'll move on, because the final news item that I put in here for us to at least mention is that Kitware has announced the first release of the common package specification, which is supposed to make some of these things easier to work with. But I don't know. This is not a space I'm big in.
The whole point is standardizing how you ingest and consume packages, right?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
It sounds cool. I read through it, and I think there was a talk on this sort of thing at CppCon. I think some of the Kitware guys talked about it. So it sounds cool. Maybe I'll have a look at it for future projects.
Yeah,
I mean,
guess
the Kitware
it's
guys
depend on adoption.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Is it gonna have backends for like Con and VC package, whatever other people uses?
Or will it be?
I admit I used to write a lot about package management and whatnot, but I kind of like moved on with my life like a couple years back. I do remember writing a post about saying the problem we have is we do not have any common description of packages that is actually like usable because of all the possible options. Didn't get a lot of traction back in the day. So I'm glad to see that. Maybe I was not entirely incorrect about that opinion, but time will tell.
Yeah, time will tell. I agree. Like I see, new build systems being announced, and I just say that's interesting. Let me know if when it becomes usable, basically.
Like modules.
Oh, well. Yeah, it's like Like modules. That's depressing. Why do you have to say that?
Actually, I was playing with modules today, and I think I'm finally getting there. Finally. Speaking, we talking about meeting C++ earlier. Daniela made a talk at meeting C++ a couple years back. I'm pretty sure she made it at other conferences. I think it was, like everyone. The secret of conference speakers is we have one talk per year, and we recycle it at like every conference with a slight variation. So I'm pretty sure there is more than one version of this talk. Either way, she was playing a lot with modules, and she shows like she used ASIO, she used FFmpeg, I think, and a few other things to make like a client server like video streaming library in 1 hour that does everything and compiles with module with pretty good compile time and everything. That was quite impressive. And so every year I try to play with modules, and every year I give up after a day or two because I hit like a big hurdle. I'm getting closer today. I'm not saying I finally got it and it's finally ready for me to be used, but I think I'm getting closer. On Windows, with my latest version of MSVC, do not ask me about other platforms because I think I'm going to have more problems.
Well, good. I have one question. How's IntelliSense for it?
So what you do is that on top of every import directive, you do a pound if IntelliSense, and then you put all your includes instead, and then you do else imports.
Right.
And it actually worked because the only thing that takes forever to pass is your IDE, which is fine because IntelliSense already takes forever to pass anyway, so I can't tell the difference, and I got my syntax highlighting working, but my compile times are fine. And I think I killed Jason with that one.
That's the thing that has always stopped me from doing module stuff. I've got 2 projects and modules that I've abandoned because the lack of IntelliSense just irked me.
Yes. No, I was about to give up, and I think this is the last iteration, which was like 6 months ago, of my play with modules. I found out that you can do pound if def IntelliSense, and that works. Just your IDE lies and doesn't use modules, and then your actual compile times are using modules.
Excellent.
I will probably get some comments about that decision, but you know what? It works. I have auto-completion in modules. Just next question.
Okay, so what is the compiler that IntelliSense actually is? I'm trying to remember the name.
EDG.
What's that?
It's EDG, Edison the design group.
Edison design group.
From what I know from sources that I will not name at Microsoft, it actually emulates some weird behavior and all parts of MSVC when it's running for MSVC, the IDE. Because since it's a different compiler, sometimes it concludes different things, which is also the reason why sometimes you get errors and warnings that MSVC doesn't have, because they're not the same compiler.
Or some static search are squiggled red whenever they compile just fine.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the news item I was just looking for, and I did find it. The company announced in 2025 that it will be closing in 2026, and its C++ compiler front end will be open sourced. Yep. So that has lots of questions about what will happen with IntelliSense. Will they be maintaining the open source fork of EDG, or are they going to do something completely different?
I can't name my sources, but from what I heard, every couple years there's someone at Microsoft who's like, this is so silly, why are we doing this, and tries to use MSVC as the front end for IntelliSense, and then gives up. Okay. Because it's apparently just really, really hard to tool anything with MSVC, the compiler. So that's why they kept using EDG behind the scenes.
Well, maybe it'll be interesting when and if, assuming they actually open source it here. I haven't seen it in a release of that. Wow, since 1988. That is amazing.
And sad.
Yeah, in a way. But I mean, everyone should be allowed to eventually drop a project they've been working on for 40 years.
You can't make them.
Okay. We should probably, I don't know, actually start the interview, I guess. But Keith, you've already mentioned this in your bio that you're a fan of like code quality, right? And I think, you have, probably the most viewed ACCU talk ever.
Yep.
And it's rivaling most of the CppCon talks as well. I believe there's probably only a few CppCon talks even that have more views. And, just go ahead and tell our audience why. Go ahead.
Well, I would love to if I could. I don't know why. There's probably a load of factors. Why it was so
Well, I mean,
Why it
tell
was
the
so
audience
popular.
what your talk was about.
It was all about my experience of upgrading a fairly large code base. So the game I work on, Sea of Thieves, from C++ 14 to 20. The ACCU thumbnail would have you believe that we started on 11. We didn't. That thumbnail has done terrible but great things. it did the job in driving engagement. I'll give it that, but it is so wrong. The longer you look at it, it just gets worse and worse.
Now I'm curious. I have to go look again at the thumbnail. Yeah.
The two things that stand out is it implies that we started on 11. We didn't.
Oh.
I never mentioned 11. Well, I think I mentioned we got scope denums in C++ 11, and that was the only time I mentioned 11. And then the other thing is it implies that we went towards more MSVC specific code, and half the talk is we are not doing that. We were moving away from MSVC specific code for very good reasons. So I look at that thumbnail, I laugh. It's like, it did its job. Good job.
Well,
Do you think this is the reason?
I think that helped. I remember whenever it first came out, I noticed that all the thumbnail was changing so often. Like sometimes I get the proper ACU thumbnail, the one that everybody gets that makes you look awesome, the picture of you,
Yeah.
that makes you look really cool on stage. I had a few. There's a few of those there, but they just landed on this thing that just drove engagement with the pirate ships of Sea of Thieves, and C++. Yeah. I have to imagine that as part of it. I think the other thing is, from talking to people, I think this is a story that a lot of engineers have went through, and nobody's really talked about the experience.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever I was going through it, I was like maybe despairing, but also giggling at the same time. Like there was like you find some really horrid stuff whenever you start upgrading a massive code base like this. Some really obviously terrible stuff just starts dropping out, and you're just like, I thought this would be a really good talk. And fun fact, I first proposed this talk for GDC and they rejected it. So they rejected it. I get it. It was very technical, and I don't think GDC they don't really go hard on like the technicalities of C++ and stuff like that. They're like it's a bit more high level. But yeah, and then on the week that I got rejected, ACU's call for papers went out. I was like, I'll just copy paste my proposal, and it all went well.
And conveniently much closer to home for you.
Absolutely. It was a 2.5-hour drive. It was great.
I think Jason and I were both in the room. At least I was in the room because I was at AQ, and I think you were there too.
I was
Jason?
definitely in the room, yes.
Yeah. I remember him and Guy were just like humming and ahhing outside of the room. Should we go to this? Should we not go to this? And I was like, come on in.
Is that right? I don't remember that part.
Oh, I remember
completely
that
deny
vividly.
that. I remember thinking, hey, Keith looks like a great... No, I'm just kidding.
But I think you make an interesting point about the fact that nobody talked about it. Because I'm going to be honest, I watched it, I liked it, but it was a lot of like deja vu for me, things I've done in the past on other games. Yeah. And I think maybe I started having like conference brain, the fact that I spend too much time talking to other people at conferences and I just assume this is how people talk about and this is what people talk about. And then if you actually go online and try to research it, there is not that many primary sources. No. Or talks or whatever. There's stuff about migrating from legacy as a general concept, but I don't think I heard people mentioning specifically like C++ version or fighting Z conformance and whatnot.
Yeah. I just thought it was... I had no aspirations for it to be exceptionally well received. I just thought it was a really cool topic.
So I kind of live generally, I believe, in a different world than you two, in that like every project I've ever worked on has had to been multi-platform, multi-compiler. So like a lot of the things, like from my perspective, moving from C++ 14 to 17 to 20 to 23 is generally speaking just been, you change the standard version.
Oh yeah.
And it compiles.
Yeah.
Right. It's been rare that changing the standard version breaks my code. So why don't you like, for people who are like more like my background, explain like what are some of the things that you hit? Like why was this a big deal?
Well, the first was the whole idea of permissive C++.
Okay.
So whenever we started the project, like for us as an Xbox game studio, so like we're Microsoft first party, like MSVC is the only compiler. We're shipping Xbox games. We are not shipping any other platform, right? You have PC and Xbox. You're an MSVC land, so like you don't really think about it, right? You just take the default. The default's good. Let's start making a game, and you don't really think about it for years, and you just go along on your merry way. If it compiles, it compiles. If it doesn't, it doesn't, right?
Right.
And then, as you say, once you start introducing more compilers and more platforms to the mix, issues start to arise. And issues we did find. Yeah, so we this started becoming a problem whenever we made the PS5 port. So this was never something that we like. I don't think anybody in our at Rare would ever have thought that whenever we were making Sea of Thieves, it was going to go to a Sony platform. Like that that was wild. Like that was never something that we ever had to think about. At least I never thought about it. Maybe the higher ups did, but I certainly didn't. So that whenever we had to start compiling with that compiler, then we started to find real issues. And a large part of the talk was also like talking about the whole idea of tech debt. Like, what do you do when you're facing that scenario? And if you watch both talks, you'll probably hear Guy Davidson being very gleeful about like, why would you ever do the thing that we did and just like do some tech debt, right? And just like get it working when we did. And like tech debt's a whole tool, right? So we knew this was a problem, but we also knew we had deadlines. So you do the quote unquote bad thing, and then you go back later and you fix it all, and that's what we did, right? And that worked really well for that. So we did the bad thing, we did the pre-processor branching, and then we came back and we fixed it all and got it all to be standards conformant, and we got some really good wins out of it. So yeah.
And what compiler does PlayStation use?
I'm not going to say that. I think it's a really well-known thing, but also I don't want to be the person to say it in person.
Oh, okay. It's not Visual Studio.
No, so I say PS5 compiler in public, but I think it's a really well-known. I think it's really well-known, but I'm not.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I will just say, because I have no inside information, that I thought it was LLVM, and we can just assume that you're talking Visual Studio to one of the open source compilers, effectively. Sure. And then we can roll with that.
Yeah, that sounds that sounds right. Actually, I mean, I don't know. I don't want to bounce back too far away from the topic, but this is a question. Maybe, do you think like I don't know if you had the same feeling as I had, Keith? But when I worked in the game industry for a while, I mean, I still consult for them, and I still think like sometimes they're more secretive about what they do in the defense industry. And I wonder how much that factors into the fact that we don't talk about what we do, and how the fact that yes, I had to upgrade to this compiler that I can for example, to me, it's absurd that I can't even say that, this is a very famous. Well, I don't have a deal with Sony. I guess I can say that, yeah, maybe I suspect it might be LVM, but, like, why can't I even mention the fact that the compiler used on a video game console might be X, Y, or Z? To me, that's just absurd. And I think that kind of plays into this whole idea that we don't talk enough about things.
Yeah, I genuinely don't know. But I think it's like, it's all proprietary tooling, and people like to keep that under wraps. I could be wrong. It could be that I can talk about it, but I've seen some forum posts.
No, I heard the same thing. I heard the same thing. I asked the question once, and someone just literally answered me with a DM like, "Hey, if you email if you email me this way, I'll tell you that it is actually this version of this compiler." And I'm like,
yeah,
it shouldn't be so hard to figure out what kind of like compiler or feature set I can have on a given platform.
Yeah. Couldn't possibly say.
My point is more like, do you think this is hurtful for like people talking about what they do and what kind of issues we encounter and whatnot?
I didn't have much of an issue. I just had to make sure that I didn't say the wrong thing on stage. But I personally, those types of things, I'm not that bothered about. As long as we were able to talk about like some of the practices, like I think being able to go up and speak at conferences on what we're working on, I think that's really a really cool thing. But some like I get it if people want to keep certain stuff proprietary and under wraps and stuff like that. I just like talking about the code because the code's the cool bit. Yeah. As long as I can talk about the code, I'm A-okay.
Yeah. Reminds me of like the 2018, I'm gonna ballpark era. For our listeners who don't go to C++ conferences, finance and high frequency traders have a large presence at the conferences. Speakers and presenter, like the booths, they're always recruiting. And there was a time frame, I think it was around 2018, when officially none of the high frequency traders were doing custom hardware. No FPGAs, no ASICs. Officially, that's what they would tell you. But they all had job openings for people with FPGA and ASIC experience.
Yes. I think that's why a lot of these secrets become more open, right? I think that's it. You just look at the job listings or Git submits, and it becomes very obvious what you're doing. But
so if PlayStation, if Sony is looking for an LLVM developer, then it gives it away right there, basically. I mean, hypothetically, you're not going to say one way or the other, but hypothetically it would.
Going back to the topic, Keith, you said you had to, like, you when you made Sea of Thief, obviously you thought you were only going to be like Microsoft platforms and France are always going to be MSVC. But if I recall correctly, Unreal, like, you didn't have to patch Unreal itself, right? Because Unreal already has support for like consoles and LLVM or whatever.
It does now.
It didn't at the time.
So in my most recent talk, I show off some of the build tool code that we have because we have it from the point that we forked. I forget I think it was like 2016. I could be wrong. Unreal 4.10, and they say that, like, if you're compiling for Clang, they just turned off all the warnings because they couldn't compile. That's all gone, so it's really good now. Like it compiles with Clang just fine now without any issue on like Linux and stuff. But like back whenever we were doing stuff, no. So like the engine's been getting really good over the last 10 years. It didn't do all of that whenever we were making the game. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then because we forked, we didn't get all the nice benefits of all of their work that they did to improve everything going forward. But
now I forget, have you merged back or?
Absolutely not. That's never happened.
Okay.
No. We'll still take cherry picks. So like if we find a bug in the engine or the editor, like the first thing we'll do is just go and look at the Git history, because like it's kind of open, right? Like you can see Unreal Engine's code in Git quite easily. So we just go and look and it's like, oh yes, they fixed this at this point. Okay, we'll just grab that change, right? So we'll still take stuff from them, but there's still the divergence is insane. No, that'd be massive.
Yeah, 10 years of engine differences, I can sympathize. No, I think the answer is immediately nope, not gonna happen.
Yeah.
Okay, so the interoperability work is more recent than I thought. It is good though. I mean, it is. I think it was a sign of like the shift in focuses and mindset in the late 2010s or mid 2010s, where more and more platforms realized that they would better be supporting more things and being more like open to alternative like compilers, tool chains, platforms, and whatnot than just targeting one thing. And I think it has done some good.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Compile with all the compilers you can. After that, doing that, I switched a lot of my hobby projects to compiling with Clang CL and stuff, and that was quite fun as well. I have a lightning talk geared up for SC on C around one of the things that upgrade happened. The upgrade showed me essentially. Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yeah, I think I saw your name. You're going to be speaking at like QNC, right?
Yes, I am. Yes, yeah.
Wait, is it the three of us? Now I'm thinking, Jason, are you at the QNC this year?
Oh yeah, I'm giving a workshop as well. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll see each other and the listeners who come to a QNC.
Yeah, you should come. I mean, I'm a fan of basically all the conferences, and I'll just take a moment to say that too. There's this year, a C++ specific. Can we call ACU C++ specific?
Kinda. Yeah, ish.
Mostly.
They'll take other languages if you want to.
Yeah. I mean, C++ on C was C++ specific. It has since merged with Accu. Accu
Yes.
is more systems language specific, which is true also for NDC Tech Town. It's systems language specific, mostly with a heavy leaning towards C++. A lot of C++ people go there. So from my estimation, there's 3 C++ conferences in North America each year and about 8 or 9 in Europe each year right now. And that includes the new Belgian C++ Symposium, Keith, that you were at. And I heard great things and that they are hoping to bring it back next year. And
It was really
also not yet, not officially announced, but there was some tagged future dates for the Dutch C++ Under the Sea conference coming back again in 2026 as well.
Yeah, and I heard the thing that started as a small university thing in Madrid, I think, is getting bigger too.
Yeah, the Madrid one happens every year. There's also a small Italian one that happens every year. I think it's only one day in Italy. So I'm including all those in my count of like 9. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still keeping my fingers crossed for Paris to come back. I don't know if Fred or Joel are listening. Please come back.
Do you need an excuse to visit Paris again, Mathieu?
I mean, it's a good pretext, and yeah.
That's it.
I mean, again, for the listeners, speaking is free travel. So if you want to go to Paris or Madrid or any city you want to visit, to become a speaker.
Almost every conference will pay for travel, and I believe every conference does pay for hotel.
Yeah,
if it's a C++ one, there are some conferences out there that do not.
Yes, I mean of the conferences I just mentioned.
Yes.
Let's not talk about certain game conferences that pay nothing.
Yes. They're a hard sell to your company.
And whether or not you recycle a talk, it is still like speaking at a 2-day conference is at least 4 days of your life. That it takes to speak at the one day at a conference. If you give one talk at a 2-day conference, it's 4 days of your life. That's what I'm trying to say, at least, because you also have the prep time for the talk itself.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, on the topic of conferences, and you already brought up Accu, do you want to give us a preview of what you're going to be giving there? Your title is public now.
It is. It's a sequel, right? We love sequels in the games industry. So I decided to keep the same tagline as my previous talk. How hard could it be? And it's all about getting to a higher warning level and slapping on warnings as errors at the end of it. And yeah, it's largely in the same thing, as the same vein as my previous talk. And yeah, I gave it a BCPP, and it seemed to have went down quite well. I had a very large Q&A at the end, which was really cool. It was really awesome. The questions just kept coming. It was great. But yeah, it went really well. And I definitely learned a few things I'm going to add to it. A large amount of the content around that conference, it was along the same lines of trying to make more tooling to find logic errors and very silly mistakes that your compiler can just find if you enable warnings, right? And most people already know this. Most people will start a project and they'll start off with all the highest warnings. But us in games land, that's not the world we live in. So it's all about how, if you don't live in that world, how can you claw your way into that world?
I must say it's really not most developers start with all warnings. I can say this as someone who's done training in literally every industry. Yeah. Games is not special in this regard. Everyone disregards warnings for the most part.
Yeah,
I'd love to see it. Unreal does a very special thing, which is very public. I just don't want to give away too many spoilers at the talk.
Okay. Yeah. We still have to sell some tickets.
Exactly. Yeah.
So can't give you everything on a free podcast.
Yeah.
So you're enabling warnings as errors. That's the thing, right?
And upping the warning level, yes. So upping the warning level and then making those warnings errors is the goal.
From W3 to W4.
Well,
Or high. Okay, all right. No spoilers. All right, fine.
Only more.
well,
Jason,
that's a complicated story, and it takes a good 20 minutes to get to that point.
Okay, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, I know this is your interview, Keith, but Jason, do you see that people don't start with warnings? Like, what's the reason for a new project? Because for a legacy project, I can understand this. This looks like a mountain of warnings I will never get through. But like, if you're just starting from scratch,
I mean, it's partially lack of education because if you start with Visual Studio, maybe you just start with what the default is, and it's W3 is the default, right?
Default, yeah.
Which is pretty good. W4 is much better. W4 gives you a lot of like conversions, like implicit conversions between built-in types, warnings that are, in my opinion, spectacular and necessary.
Yes.
And very difficult to deal with if you don't start out with them. Yes, I'm aware. Okay, so so there's that, and then there's the and then people are like, oh well, the code, like, well, this one warning was getting in our way, so they just like disable that one warning or whatever. And by the time you've disabled one warning, why not disable another warning, right? So that happens. And then on the other side of just not knowing. Like I always ask my students this, like, does W all enable all of the warnings?
Depends.
Just as a question.
It depends.
It depends, yes. On Visual Studio, it does enable all the warnings. On GCC and Clang, it enables what I tongue-in-cheek say was all of the warnings in 1988, which is, I know, not actually accurate, but, and just for the record, W extra does not include W all. So I've seen people with W all think that they have all the warnings enabled. They do not. And I've seen people with W extra who think that they have even more warnings enabled, and they don't. They only have the warnings from W extra.
Right, because it's not levels. It's collections. You basically pull in a set of warnings.
That's really interesting. And then none of those has W conversion either, right?
Then none of them have W conversion. And then between GCC and Clang, what you actually get with W conversion is kind of significantly different. Yes. I have a quote. I'm going to call Herb out right now if you don't mind. In 2018, Herb gave a talk, and it was when he was talking about his lifetime analysis warnings that they were funding with like Visual Studio. And he said,
whatever happened to that?
I don't know. GCC has them now, just for the record. W lifetime is in GCC now. I don't know what happened to Visual Studio. He said, we don't have to teach things that all compilers warn on. And I would agree with him, except for the fact that developers don't enable their warnings. And it's still something that is, I consider, an education matter.
Yeah, the bad defaults on I guess we can go back to build system and the fact that if you start a new project, Visual Studio has its own thing if you start a project on Visual Studio, but I would argue if you start a new project this day, you should probably put it in CMake or something slightly more portable than a VS solution.
Yep.
But even then, you pull a bunch of default that were some guy's opinion. I don't know when.
Who knows when? Yeah.
So fun fact about that. So whenever I made one of my projects, I had it set to W4 WX for MSVC, and I had a CMake branch, a generator branch. That if it's compiling with anything else, it was W all, W extra, W conversion, W error.
That's a good start.
That's a problem whenever you bring Clang CL into the mix, which I did, because Clang CL
expects the
what Clang CL will do is it's a MSVC front end, so it takes all the switches from MSVC. So it'll take the Clang path because you're not using MSVC. It sees W all, and then all of the warnings come.
Because it does not translate the flags as errors to Clang.
Yeah, because W all for MSVC is everything.
So it'll actually do everything on Clang.
Yes.
When you thought that you
Yeah, there's a fairly large gotcha because I thought I was going mad, but there's loads of like blog posts. And there's a few Git issues where there's like a decent amount of argumentation and conversation around should that be the thing, because it's very unexpected whenever you have W all in there. So
that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I guess I
That-
would have expected that it would do all warnings because it's supposed to emulate MSVC.
yeah, but me, I just
Yeah.
thought it was, oh, I'm compiling with Clang. But no.
Right. So you have to have a special switch in your CMake configuration that says if Clang CL, then
Yes,
do
you have to
whatever.
make that yourself. You have to make sure that if you're compiling with, I forget what it was, but you have to look out for both things, and if both things
Right.
there, then it's Clang CL. Yeah.
I would, yeah, no, I do recommend if you're starting a project from scratch, at least a W4
Yep.
and WX on Windows. But if, and to go back to your question, Mathieu, and again, this isn't my interview, it's Keith's, but when you can start a, well, I used to be able to when Twitter was more fun, start a flame war very quickly by saying warnings as errors should be your default. And oh my goodness, people come out of the woodwork.
Yes.
Because they're like, oh no, that's impossible. You can't actually. Yes, you can. You can make W error your default or WX on Visual Studio.
Yeah. Well, there's people in the comment section of my ImGui talk saying you should never do this. Warnings should be warnings, and I was just like, nah, because at the end of it, I talk about like what I'm going to do next, which I have done, and yeah, I was just like, no, I think it's a good idea. I think, and that's the whole point of profiles, right?
Yeah, like I was gonna ask, what's the point of not using WX? Because for my personal experience, I had the same issue with asserts, which we used to have like on the games that I worked on. We had asserts and we had important asserts. And important asset would immediately trap you in a debugger, etc. Not important asset would not even show up in debug. Would not only show up in release builds, you would only see them in debug builds, and even then, by default, they were still off. So I'm like, what's the point of then what happens is it becomes like a wall of warnings, and then you immediately stop listening because it's just noise.
You
right?
turn them off.
That's exactly it.
Yeah, if you have like a student project of like 200 lines, then fine, maybe you can ignore the 2 warnings because that's the 2 warnings of your project. But anyone who does that on a non-trivial code base know that you stop reading because it's just noise.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I have a lot of people argue with me that you should have, for the developer, warnings as errors should be disabled, and warnings as errors should only be enabled on the CI. And I say that is absolutely a horrible idea because now you're going to treat the CI like it's your adversary, and it's not. You could have fixed that locally.
I was thinking the opposite today, actually, because warnings have a compilation cost.
Right.
And if you're running builds a lot on your CI, you could probably save a decent amount of time and money if you were to disable warnings and errors on certain jobs.
On certain jobs.
Yeah. So basically, jobs that create artifacts that are given to other parts of your CI, they should probably. I'm not saying probably. This is the thought that I had today. Maybe you should disable warnings so that it's quicker builds, and then go on. But then you might have some separate jobs that don't feed into anything else, and they still have everything on to catch everything. That wouldn't be caught in dev time. But you keep it on for dev because you want people to be able to catch all of these locally in their local developer environments. Just a thought.
That's an interesting thought. If you that's part 3 in your talk series. Here.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I don't know. That sounds a bit dangerous to be used to the world of talk. That is how to save like Amazon bills or whatever by removing warnings on your CI.
I could see like a single fast path build. I mean, like literally one of them with the warnings disabled, so you get as fast as possible feedback from your CI. You can get that build artifact. You can test it on the prototype machine or whatever. Like hypothetically, like I can see that as a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Right.
Just a thought.
I think I would ask you like how much does that cost compared to if I may go back to what we were talking earlier about like new C++ feature, I think like how many warnings can you get if you don't use like execution or ranges in your in your code base? Because I know that compile times are like the thing that people will rant about forever and say that this is impossible to use because of the compile times. I've never heard of warnings, and I usually have to fight people because I include the STL or whatever. So like, is that even like a measurable cost compared to?
Well, Yeah, I was going like Gabriel Dostrez. He had a very good talk at BCPP all about profiles. Now, I had never really watched anything about profiles up until now, which are basically standardized warnings. At least that's my impression. And
Okay.
one of his slides was taught reasoning about the compilation cost because the compiler is having to do extra work to
Right.
actually validate whether you're breaking certain warnings or not. And he did
Right.
have costs up there, and that's sort of what planted the idea in my head. Warnings are not free. They're all like they're pretty cheap, but there is a cost to them.
Right. But are we talking your standard warning, or are we talking like warning that are desperately trying to be Rust? If I might call
Well,
them
I don't know.
I recall a very long time ago, I believe it was Isabella Muerte, had actually measured that code that generated a lot of warnings compiled considerably slower than code that did not generate a lot of warnings. And if I recall, she wasn't disabling the warnings, right? It was the code has now been fixed, therefore it doesn't generate warnings. It now compiles faster. But I don't know anyone else. I mean, you obviously just told us about Gabby's talk, but I haven't seen anyone else talk about that.
That could be that maybe warnings. I don't know how these things are implemented, but they're probably trying to early out as soon as possible. So as soon as they can, like, as soon as they see a hint that they don't have to look further for any more issues, they can just stop the analysis.
Yeah, the only way I would see that was be back like I don't know, 20 years ago when I had like a software implementation of a frame buffer on Linux, and like literally writing to the terminal would have a cost. So if you have lots of warning, you literally compile slower because you're waiting on I/O for printing to the terminal.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I would hope that no, these days everything is writing to like a pipe or a container or whatever. There's no way. Although I had a game once that was actually slowed down by an assert that was like every frame dumping a lot of stack traces, and you could notice when you were triggering the assert because like the logger was throttling the main loop.
Yeah, they probably had an end line on every single one of those lines too, or something.
Yeah, and the logger was definitely synchronous and not like on another thread. Blah blah blah. But still, like you could physically see the assert slow down the product.
Oh man,
because it was just doing too much file I/O.
Well, I think we've kind of we're at an hour. We should probably wrap up the conversation here. We do like to stick around an hour here. So clearly, all of our listeners are excited to come see you at ACU, Keith. I think at this point, is there anything else that you'd like to share as we wrap up?
I don't think so. No. I've had a really good time speaking recently, and yeah. If you enjoy writing shader code, have a look at my shader testing framework. It's pretty cool.
That does remind me of a question I intended to ask. Was this that talk at ACU last year? Was that your first conference talk?
No, I talked at ACU 2023.
Okay.
Remotely with one of the Visual Studio guys, David Lee. And then I've also spoken at GDC in 2024.
Okay.
And then actually, whenever I was first mentioned on this podcast, that was for Pure Virtual C++ in 2024 as well. Whenever Cybrand was on, yeah.
That was a little while ago. And I just noticed you actually have your collection of badges.
I do.
Oh.
I like them. Yep.
I have collected all of my badges, but I have gotten rid of the lanyards because the volume that it takes up at this point. So now I just have like a stack that's like this. Yeah.
No, I've spoken at considerably fewer places than you, so I haven't got to that problem yet.
It's just a matter of time. You'll get there as well. I'll retire.
Once you start, you get more.
Yeah. Mathieu, does you have any last minute questions you wanted to get in here?
No, I think we had like a good roundup, as mentioned, and we can read in the mind of the listener, and we know that they want to come and see the talk, so they will hopefully be at AQ1C. Or I don't know if you have any other conferences that you submitted to. Maybe you don't want to tell until you know if you've taken a note or.
Yeah, are we going to see you at other conferences?
Me? No, I don't think so. Just ImGui. I think 3 in a year is enough for me at this
Yeah,
point.
that's fair. That's fair.
I'll ramp it up maybe. Every year seems to be one more than previous year. I did one. I did one in 2023, 2 in 24, and then 2 in 25, and then I've done 3 in 26. Yeah.
I think I'm averaging about 5 right now, but I might end up at 7 or 8 this year. See, depending on how things go.
Not bad.
All right, cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining us.